Hello everyone, I'm Silent Death, and welcome back to Space Engineers. Today we are going to continue working on our benchmarking mission. We're going to be working on the first area today, but first there's a few things we need to do in this beginning area before we go into Area 1. The first thing is we need to adjust the ownership of all of the stuff around the beginning area so that things that I want to be friendly are friendly, and things that I want the player to own, the player owns, regardless of who the player is, just automatically done when the player logs in. Like so. So all this stuff on this platform here and these two ships now belong to the player, while the beacons themselves belong to a kind of friendly neutral player. What I've done is we used this thing to add a new NPC, then we edited the save file to change the names, and also give the NPC a faction. So he now owns a faction. Then we've added the player to the NPC's faction. Next, we gave all the things that we wanted to be neutral to the NPC player, and we set the faction share as no share, so that makes them turn white instead of having the prefix and turn, I think it's a different shade of blue. I forget. The next thing we need to do is to pop up a mission dialog box when the player approaches the beacon. And here we go. And there we go. So this first area is going to be a maneuverability test. Area 1, which we're going to call So You Think You Can Dance. Then a mission description, which I have not done. And the final thing we need to do is to hook up this button here so that it teleports the player. I have it set up so that the pop-up box will not open again until you leave and re-enter the range, which is 250 meters. So there we go. That way it's just not constantly popping up in your face when you select ignore. So if we click enter area 1, poof, we are now in area 1, which is pretty vacant right now, I have to admit. So there's a few things we're going to want to do here. The way I'm going to test the maneuverability is by having missiles, built missiles, come chase you down and try to hit you, try to collide with your ship. And if a missile collides with the ship, the mission is over, and you get a score based on how long you have survived. To keep a player from just running in a straight line at maximum speed, we're going to need to build a boundary. So I'm thinking a 5-kilometer cube. So to do that, we'll want to use SE Toolbox to copy some of our beacons, rename them, and just stick them around in a kind of wall here. Then if the player gets outside the cube, they will automatically fail the mission. So let's do that. The boundaries are in place. You cannot see them from here, which is the center of the area, because their broadcast range is smaller. I don't want to clutter the player's screen with all kinds of beacons unless they start approaching the edge. Probably take a little bit of tweaking to get the ideal rate, but right now it's only 1.25 kilometers. Now then, we need to make some missiles. Here we have a missile that I've been using to test with. The most important thing when designing missiles for this purpose is the ratio of the acceleration of the missile compared to the acceleration of your target. According to what I've read, modern air or anti-air missiles use a ratio of 3 to 5. That's quite a bit difficult for this environment, given the relatively low velocity limit. This particular missile here has acceleration in the forward direction of about 45 meters per second squared, so it can reach maximum speed in just over 2 seconds, which gives it a acceleration ratio of a little bit over 3 compared to my interceptor there. I think that's probably going to be pretty good. Maybe a little bit too good for the starting out part, but for the more advanced levels of the area challenge, we'll start incorporating this missile into the works. But first we want to design something that's not quite as good, to give lesser ships more of a chance. We don't want to kill all the ships, we want it to be kind of fine grades here. So let's start with a new small ship. And of course we're going with a light armor. Just building that up. And if I recall right, we need quite a bit of power for large thrusters. And I forget how much. So maybe we should stick to small thrusters. Actually let me go look that up. Okay, so a single small reactor can power about 3 small thrusters in manual control, 2 in inertial dampener control. And it takes about 4 small reactors to power 1 large thruster. But large thrusters have a significantly better thrust to mass ratio. So we will probably be using those to create this kind of smaller, lighter missile, shooting for around 20 meters per second acceleration. Roughly half of that, 20 to 22.5. I think we're going to do some kind of a flat asymmetrical type missile. So we'll have this here. We will let's go ahead and turn on some mirroring. Go. So just mirror it right there. And also right there. Okay. So we'll want, I think it's something like long and spindly. That may not have been right. I think I messed up on the blue one. There we go. Want you there. It still did not work. It shows it right in the middle here. But when I go to place something, it's off to the side. Now that's weird. Maybe it has something to do with this part. Let's try it one more time. Please work. We'll try the other blue one. Maybe it's just a bug that they're backwards. Of course, now it seems to be going that way. Okay, that's just strange. It's off like 1 on this side. Very, very strange. Okay. Just turn that off then. So let's see, we'll go with some reactors. Put them, alternate them like this. We'll go with, say, 6 reactors, maybe? Be enough to fire the forward thrusters, or the primary thruster, and then some maneuvering thrusters. And then say a couple thrusters on that side. And a couple thrusters on that side. Now the hard part, I guess we can kind of alternate them. Like that. Doesn't look very good. And that doesn't actually fit. Well, we could move that down a little bit lower. Actually put it right, say there. That one there. That there. There, and then we'll have some reverse thrusters. Not really going to look very good. We'll see how much weight we have once we get all this stuff crammed on it. Okay. That's 4. And then the 6. Now, what is your weight? You do not tell me, or do you? Blocks? Artificial masses? I'll have to look that up somewhere else. I wish it would tell me there. Okay. But we'll need some gyroscopes somewhere. I guess we're going to have them on the top here. Really not happy with the way this is looking. Let me fiddle with this a moment and I'll be right back. This is what I've come up with. I checked the mass and I had quite a lot more mass to work with. About half as much. So I added a whole bunch of armor to make it look a little bit better. And then there's the other functional blocks like the remote controls in there, gyroscope, and all that good stuff. A timer in there because there's a bit of delay between when these spawn and when they actually start thrusting. A 10-second delay default timer setting. It gives me a little bit of extra time when I'm trying to test it so that I don't just log in and find missiles blowing me up. And there's also a few warheads around here. The warheads aren't really so much to damage the ship itself, but to damage the missile so that when the missile hits the ship, it ensures that the missile gets destroyed. Because that's how we're going to check to see if it's been hit or not, by if the missile is still functional. Now then, we need to actually work on the starting the area part, which means once the player enters this area, we're going to have to start a timer and then have the missiles start spawning and start attacking the player. So the first part I'm going to work on is getting the missiles to spawn once the player has entered the area. So let me fiddle with that for a few days, and I will be back. We have gotten a few things to spawn. So it starts out, you know, pretty easy. You have a couple of missiles to dodge. Not particularly difficult. But as more and more missiles spawn, one every 15 seconds, things quickly get interesting. Oh crap. And we've lost our first ship, and we would have failed the mission there, and we're still fairly early in the thing. But I still have some control. No, don't get me. Don't do it. No. And then they're like a pack of piranhas. Once you get, you know, too slow for them, they pretty much just tear you to shreds. Like that. Currently, there are 4 levels. The first and second level uses a very basic guidance. What you normally see in most video games when someone is shooting a missile at you is just the missile tries to move to you instead of, well, what the next level is. But by trying to move to you, it's always a day late and a dollar short, and it's fairly easy to dodge those types of missiles, which is what these are. So the first level is the Type 1 with the basic guidance, and then level 2 is the Type 2 missile, the ones with the more engines, with the basic guidance. Then we go up to level 3, which adds a different type of guidance. So it's Type 1 with the advanced guidance, and the advanced guidance attempts to predict where you're going to be and aims the missile at that point. And it is much more effective at killing you. Especially if you get up to level 4, where you have the Type 2 missiles and the advanced guidance, because those have a very high acceleration and a very advanced guidance system. It is very, very scary. It's also a remarkable amount of fun. I don't know why it's so much fun. I guess it's just because you don't really have the option to fly like this much in this game, in single player at least. But it is a ridiculous amount of fun. So the next things we need to do, all somewhat interrelated, is 1, we need to put some kind of a score display so the player knows how well they are doing so far. 2, we need to do the fail conditions. So the fail conditions are going to be if the player exits their cockpit, if they leave the boundary, which is a 5-kilometer cube centered on where you spawn. Of course, this won't be here in the actual mission. And finally, it is if any missile gets destroyed. Then the player will be teleported back to the beginning, assuming they're still alive, and they'll get a pop-up, another mission dialogue that tells them how well they did. I will probably just put the score in for now while I'm still writing the code and all that stuff, and then come back and make it prettier when we have all the basics actually functional. The last thing we need to do is a kind of an either-or thing. We need to figure out what to do when missiles hit each other instead of the ship. One option is that we can only have it count when a missile impacts the player's ship. To do that, I would have to figure out how to work with the boundary boxes and somehow check the missile's boundary box intersects with the ship's boundary box, and I have no idea how to do that. Another option is just to start removing missiles once you get to the level 3. So once the Type 1 missiles start spawning again, we remove the basic guidance Type 1 for every advanced guidance Type 1, and then do the same for the Type 2 in level 4. So you already have, or you always have, a certain maximum amount of missiles. Currently it's 15 seconds per level, or per missile, and 2.5 minutes per level. So for a total of 10 minutes. I think that's long enough. And then we need to have a last condition, which if the game, or if the thing has run so far that you have all Type 2 missiles of advanced guidance, then we'll let it run for, I don't know, maybe another minute, and then end the level with, like a victory condition. Which hopefully never happens, because if people start getting the maximum score, then it's not a very good grading system. Right, so I will do all that and be back shortly. Okay, now things are set up so that if you exit the cockpit, you leave the area and you get this little pop-up. So you get the reason you left the area and your final score. I think I'm going to use exiting the cockpit as kind of a standard abort for all the areas. Also, if you get outside the 5 kilometer cube boundary, which I think we just passed. Of course, it doesn't check every single frame. There we go. So, again, it tells us why we left and what our final score is. I've also added a warning if you're in creative mode, so that it tells you, but it doesn't force you to be in survival mode. It'll just tell you that it might break. And I've doubled the range of the boundary beacons, the transmit range. This is just to make sure that you have time to stop and turn around. I was finding it a little bit difficult with the previous setting. I suppose I could just add more beacons, but that's probably not a great idea either. And another reason to get kicked out is if you finish the mission. That is, you live long enough, which I think I ended up deciding that it's 3 times, so that would be 7.5 minutes on level 4. Fairly difficult thing to do. I've also slightly improved the targeting of the missiles, so they now target the cockpit. Of course, if you get hit by a missile, you also get kicked out. So that is our 4 current fail conditions. And you get kicked out right here where this kind of temporary platform is. Generally crash into a different ship, but that's fine. That's not going to be there in the final version. And that's pretty much what I have planned to do for Area 1 for now. I have a few more things I could do to make it a little bit more better, such as like saving the high score and things of that nature, but that's for the distant future if I ever do it at all. That's kind of basically functional and fun enough for me right now. Which brings us to our next talking point. I would like to have people test this, but I'm not really comfortable releasing this for the public on the workshop right now due to its mostly incomplete nature. If I put it up on the workshop saying that it's a work in progress, people would complain that it's not complete because that's just how people are. So I have a couple of ideas of how I could do that. One is kind of doing a sort of closed beta, assuming y'all actually want to play this. I would publish it on the workshop, but make it friends only. And you can click the link in the description below and friend me on Steam, and then you'll be able to access the file. That is option 1. Option 2 is to put it in the forums work in progress mods, which is still kind of putting it publicly. But at least there's a better chance that the people actually playing it will be people who are playing it to test it and not people who are expecting a full mission. So that's another option, and that's, well, basically both options. The only options that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe someone has a better suggestion. I suppose I could also just put a straight download link to the files in one of the episodes or something like that. But that doesn't seem all that convenient for people. You would have to manually check to see if it's updated, and that would be kind of annoying. But let me know what you would prefer. We could do the closed beta or just put a post on the forums. There will continue to be weeks between episodes while I continue to work on this mission. The next part we're going to work on is going to be Area 3, which we're going to have to build a number of ships for, a number of large ships for, because it's going to be attacking capital ships. Area 2 is something I'm going to be working on off camera while I record Area 3, so expect at least a month or so between another episode. Area 2 is going to be the hardest for me to do, but it's going to be the most amazing, I think. It's going to be the most fun if I can get it to work like I want it to. Well, actually, Area 4 will be the most fun because it's going to be a combined test. Like the, I think it's called 3DS Max. At the end of the benchmarking thing, they have a combined test where they do all the types of tests. So that is what I'm planning on doing. There'll be missiles, and there'll be large ships, and there'll be the Area 2 part as well. Like if you like, subscribe if you're not, leave a comment if you have anything to say. I do read all comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.